We're about to go live with Mr. Robert Greene, 40 Laws of Power. This is exciting. Okay, so let's go to the other room. Z, I'm going to take this protein. Can you grab that cup and that sparkling water, please? How you guys doing? All right, let's see if our buddy Robert Greene is on. We got a bunch of people getting on right now, joining us. Oh my gosh, I haven't gone live here for a while. I missed you guys. By the way, we just had a business meeting here. Staff, we got 50% of the staff is back here. Okay. All right, let's go over here. Okay. Get your questions ready for Mr. Robert Greene. Mario, are you checking to see if we have him on?
Yes.
I'm going to go on here, see if he is on to request him. Robert Greene. He is not on yet. Okay. Yes, I know. We love him too. And I can't wait to get some questions out of our buddy here. Mario, I'm going to need a thing to put this up. Tripod to put it up. That'd be great. Yeah. Yeah, please. Yes, Robert Greene, the author. So get your questions ready. Make sure you're sharing this live. Tag your peers. Invite them, especially those that love the guy, because they're going to be able to ask him a ton of questions. And I'm pretty excited about this one because Robert and I go way back. He wrote a book, I think, called The 33 Strategies of War. Wrote another book called Mastery. He wrote another one called 40 Laws of Power. He wrote a 50th Law.
He's on, trying to send requests. Or
Let's see if he is on. Legendary Robert Greene, man. Apparently he is on. Let's check to see if he's on. If you tell him to post a comment, I will be able to... Robert...
Really? There you go.
What username is he with, Mario?
His official account.
There it is. Okay, Greene. Okay, I see him. Greene, the request has been sent your way. Let's see if we're going to get him here. Oh my gosh, we have him. Robert, how are you?
Okay, Patrick, how are you doing?
I am doing good. First of all, happy birthday to you. I know it's been a week, but happy birthday to you.
It's been 2 weeks. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. That was very nice of you.
Yes. You know, you're one of my favorite guys to go out with, to eat with, to argue with, to debate with, to speak with, to do a lot of different things with. Robert,
to disagree with.
I think that's you. I'm just a nice guy. I just sit there and I say, let's go have some Rafi's kebab. You just want to correct me all the damn time. And, you know, I'm trying to get smarter. So one of these days, hopefully I'll experience some...
Explain to me one thing, Patrick. How is it that you have 3.6 million followers on Instagram and I barely have 100,000?
You're not a social media guy.
Does that mean you're 36 times better than I am?
There's no way in the world. I mean, if it comes to writing, I'm maybe 1/1,000,000th of the level of a writer that you are. If it comes down to creating content, maybe I got an upper hand on the content side, but not when it comes down to writing. So how's life? How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. You know, I'm better than when you saw me, boys. When you saw me last, I was it was pretty bad state. I was like in a wheelchair and I was still very much under the effects. I'm much better, but I thought I'd be a lot further along than I am right now. In other words, I don't think I'm ready to try out for the Lakers yet.
Not yet?
No, a couple more years.
Maybe the D League. Are you ready for the D League or not yet?
I'd be ready for like the wylie, maybe. I think your grandmother could take me to the rim right now.
But your spirits are up, which is cool. I like seeing your spirits up.
Yeah. Spirits are fairly up, yeah.
So your last book, Laws of Human Nature. I know writing books is like having a baby. For you, you're a perfectionist. One of the reasons why I don't miss a single word of a book you write. If you've written any book, I've read it, and I'm a big student of your content. How do you feel your book did? I know you're the author. How do you feel your book did?
It's been hugely successful. I mean, we'll be 2 years into it in October, and the sales have exceeded any of my other books, including the 48 Laws.
Wow.
But that's not to say it'll have the same impact as the 48 Laws, because that grew over the years, but it's been incredibly successful. And a lot of it is audible. It seems like a lot of people these days are preferring to read books on Audible as opposed to getting the actual copy of the book. But I'm not complaining. You know, we've sold well over 350,000 copies so far, so that's not bad.
Not bad at all. 350,000 copies at what's the price point of the book? 35 bucks? Because it's not a small book. It's a $35, $40 book.
Well, paperback is less.
Paperback is less. A good price point. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
So for some of us that are always hoping you're working, the greedy ones, the greedy, curious folks who consume your content, are you planning on giving birth to another book anytime soon, or you're not working on anything?
Oh, I sure am. I'm about 2 or 3 months pregnant right now. You know, metaphorically speaking, given the time frame. So I've been working very hard on the research for about a year now. And this summer, I plan on going through all of my note cards and begin the writing process. So I'm very much immersed in that right now. It's that's what keeps my spirits up, you know, because I'm not able, like most people, I can't go to the gym. I can't do my usual routines. But those hours that I'm working on my book, that's what's sustaining me right now.
Can you give us a hint of what the topic is about, or no? Anything, like even a glimpse of it?
Well, it's a slightly more spiritual book, quote unquote. I hate to use that word because it sounds soft, and people go, oh, Robert Greene's getting soft. But I don't think so. Basically, it's a book about what I call the sublime, and it's something I touched upon in my last book. And the way I describe it is life, being a human being and living in society in a civilized world, it's kind of like a circle. Being a social animal, we create kind of limits and conventions to how we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to operate in the world. And those kind of conventions and codes that we operate by, the rules, at a certain point, they kind of become oppressive. It kind of limits what we think, it limits what we do. And I'm saying to kind of go beyond that circle, to explore beyond your limits in whatever area, in your thoughts, in your actions, whatever that is an experience that is incredibly life enhancing, and it expands your creativity, it expands what you can do. It's generally therapeutic in life. And I call that experience the sublime, where you're pushing past your own physical and mental limits. And I'm going very, very, very deep into the book. The ultimate limit is, of course, death itself. And so, you know, I had a near brush with death myself. And so being able to overcome your fear of mortality is the ultimate way of going beyond that circle. It's the ultimate way of expanding your limits. If you lose your fear of death, you will slowly lose all of those other fears that are plaguing you in life, which is something I personally experienced with my own stroke. So it's a very important book to me. I meant to write it 14 years ago, but then the 50th law intervened and everything kind of got off track. But since my stroke, it's a book that means a lot to me, and I hope it'll be good. I think it'll be good.
Wow!
If Patrick likes it, it's a good book.
Listen,
you're my barometer.
You haven't written a book I don't like. That's the problem. You know, like, you give me one book that I can't promote. I love all your books. You know, I'm your walking commercial. You know, everywhere I go, I try to get people to reach out. I went and got a haircut. My buddy, Michael Rapatoni, I said, Michael, you got to read The Laws of Human Nature. He says, what are you talking? I said, you guys, Pat, it's a big book. I said, just go buy it. You'll thank me later. And we had our entire company read the book. Every single agent in the company was required to read your book and write a paper on it. It's that powerful of a book. Robert, out of curiosity, out of all the books you read, which one was the most emotionally draining to write because it took the most out of you?
Yeah, it's probably why I had my stroke. It took 5 years. And you know, the problem for me is I just don't write a book to make money, and I don't write a book just to please my ego. I really, really think deeply about the reader. My whole philosophy is I want to get inside your brain. I want to infiltrate into you, get inside your blood, and literally alter how you look at the world and have a deep impact on you. And because I'm so ambitious that way, it requires so much effort and so much work on my part that it was very, very exhausting. Where are you going?
I'm going to go to my office. I'm trying to grab your books because I want to show the folks that are on here that maybe don't recognize your face, but once they see the book, they're going to know what books it is. But go ahead. I'm listening to you. You said The last one took 5 years and it was very exhausting.
Yeah, it was very exhausting because I really want to get at something true. I want to get at something real. I want people to say, yeah, he's really explained human nature. Yes, he's really explained power or the process of mastery. So, I go all in. When I write a book, I'm like Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul. I give it everything that I've got and then some.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked that question is because when I read your books, I mean, the way you go into the amount of research you bring in and how you tie it all together, like even reading it to get to a point it's almost like a climax, right? Like when you're having some private time with somebody and you're enjoying yourself and you go to the right place and climax, it's like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Reading your books, it's like having sex, man. I don't know how to say it. It's like sex when reading books. It's a very strange
Wow.
analogy to use, but it just
I've
means that
never, you're the first person to put it in those terms. That's very interesting. I don't know what Freud would say, but it's very good. Thank you, Patrick.
that means in the last 24 months, your books have had sex with 350,000 people. The laws of human nature. You ought to. You're bigger than Will Chamberlain. You ought to be proud of yourself, man. It's like.
Well, I did write The Art of Seduction after all.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I got two of them here.
Those are amazing bookshelves you have.
Yeah, this is just here at the office, but then I got a bigger one at the home office. These are the ones I have here. You haven't been here. I got to invite you out here. I was hoping to bring you out here. Obviously, the plan was for you to come out until the event took place, but it's fine. I just wanted to kind of show a couple of the books that I have here of yours. So let me ask you a different question, a technical question for you, just out of curiosity. How are you feeling about, Jenny, say hello. Hello. Okay.
Hi, Jenny.
She said hello. How are you feeling about everything that's going on in the world today? And I'm talking specifically with coronavirus. How are you feeling about all that stuff with what's going on?
Well, it's a pretty large question. I mean, I'm very worried. For instance, I had a pretty big portfolio in Wall Street, a lot of stocks, and I got out of the stock market, which, maybe at the time wasn't very smart because it's been going up, but I lost confidence. I'm very concerned about the overall ramifications of this pandemic. And so I also feel I have a lot of empathy for what a lot of people must be going through right now. The life of a writer is pretty much the life, you're already under quarantine. You spend most of your time in your house working and writing. So I haven't had to adjust very much. But I know how difficult it can be, how it can be lonely, how you can start climbing the walls, how you can start, wasting a lot of time, and how the isolation can affect you. This is something that people aren't talking about as much. It's something I study a lot. I think that I'm worried about the long-term psychological ramifications of this crisis. On the surface, people look fairly good, like they're adjusting. They're either wearing their masks or they're doing their isolation or whatever it is. But I think long term, there's going to be some problems and some issues. And I'm telling people that, there's a lot of happy talk out there. You go on the internet and people are always trying to boost and say everything is great, everything's fine. And I'm trying to tell you, no, you need to think about what could happen to you if this kind of levels of fear and caution get inside your bloodstream. And 5 or 6 months down the road or a year from now, when we finally emerge, what are the effects this is going to have on your psychology, the ramifications? It's something I can't say for sure. I'm not Nostradamus, but I'm very worried about it. I mean, there are all sorts of aspects that concern me, but I think it's very real.
What are the worst things that could happen to us? Worst things. Where could this go, mindset-wise, psychologically?
Well, I remember, my parents. I'm older than you, obviously, and my parents grew up in the Depression. Particularly my father. He was born in 1920, and he never got out of that Depression mentality, right? He was very worried about ever spending a lot of money on anything. He was always worried. Saving was incredibly important. And those were somewhat positive values. But it made a lot of people very, very skittish, particularly their relationship to money. And so I'm worried about people becoming overly cautious. Like I make a point in mastery of saying you need to find a path in life where you're going in a direction that emotionally connects with you, that you choose a career that in some way connects to who you are. Now it can't be, you obviously have to make money, you have to have a living, and it's very important. You need food on the table, and I understand that. But it's equally important that you have other values, other things that are important to you, like fulfilling your life's mission, your life's task. And so I'm worried that people are going to get more overly conservative about their career moves, about who they are and about what they're planning for the future. And they're going to grab a job. You know, that's one of the ramifications that I'm worried about.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting, because that element, when you said your father was born in 1920, that's what happened to his generation. They were just kind of taking the safe route, and kind of creativity went down.
Yes, very much so. I mean, their era was like the 1950s, right? He was in his 30s then. That was kind of his peak era, which might be the same now for millennials. So I'm very worried about millennials. And that was a very kind of stagnant period of conformity, etc. So these things, they don't just go away. They have a lasting impact on people, I believe.
Don't you think it's the thing is that this is a lot different than the Depression? Because
it is.
The part with Great Depression, I was looking at it the other day with numbers, and I went and looked at FDR. You know, a lot of times you got the Republicans and the Democrats. Democrats, they love FDR, and Republicans will go typically Reagan. I'm talking the last 100 years. I'm not talking like George Washington or whoever else you go in the past. And one of the things about FDR, when you look at him, he didn't do a massive bailout. Yeah, he did minimum wage to 25 cents, but he raised it one time to 25 cents. Yeah, he did Social Security, but it was only for people above 62 years old, and the benefits didn't go to that many people. It was only like 64,000 people at the time. So the comparable of that time versus today, back then, these guys had nothing to eat. They were trying to just, break bread and just have enough for everybody. Versus today, you got 41 million people that are unemployed, but you got $1 trillion of money that's being sent out to a lot of people. So they're not, because if it was like Great Depression, crime would be very, very up. How do you process that as a critical thinker yourself on the difference between Great Depression and today?
Well, the only thing that FDR did was he had a lot of work programs. So his main thing was dealing with unemployment, and he put a lot of people to work with massive infrastructure projects, building dams. He even employed a lot of writers to write things for the New Deal, etc. So his whole thing was creating all kinds of jobs through the public sector, which I know is something most conservatives like yourself probably don't respect very much. But he was very proactive in that sense. But are you asking me about the bailout now, or what are you asking? The differences
what I'm
between now
asking
and the
you is, no, because you said your concern is that your father was born in 1920, and after the Great Depression, you made the comparison of the fact that maybe creativity will go down. And I was making a point to say, economically, the level of fear and frustration and concern in a household of today is not comparable to 1920s and the Great Depression, because people are being bailed out. So doesn't that kind of cause the fact that creativity will not take a hit over the next few years?
Well, I don't think people are being completely bailed out. I mean, I think people are feeling a lot of fear, and they're feeling quite helpless because first of all, we don't know the long-term ramifications of it. The bailout program, the $1,200 checks that people got, I don't know how far that's going to carry them. I don't know what else you're referring to. The trillions of dollars didn't necessarily go to the average person out there in the public. So I think people are dealing with massive amounts of insecurity and uncertainty. And from my study of human nature, the aspect of uncertainty is one of the worst things that a human can deal with. We like things that are predictable. We like to be able to know what is going to be happening tomorrow or next month or next year. And as opposed to the Great Depression, which was very clear the source of it and what we could do about it, although we could argue about different programs, we're not really certain about this. We really don't know where we're going to be in 1 year, right? We really don't know where the economy is going to be. And also we're going through a phase in capitalism of what they call creative destruction, which is generally a positive phenomenon in capitalism, where with progress, huge industries are completely obliterated as new ones arise. But now we're going through a massive level of destruction of industries that were there just a year ago that are gone completely. What's going to happen to the tourist industry? What's going to happen to the whole entertainment segment? People here in Hollywood, there's a massive restructuring going on about how are you going to make a film. You can't make a film with social distancing. So these are things that go far beyond the Great Depression in the 1930s, as far as affecting the very overall structure of capitalism and where we're going to be in a year or 2 years. A lot of things are being weeded out and completely destroyed that won't be there in a year.
Yeah, I know you call me a conservative.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to label you. You're
And
more conservative than I am, let's say that.
then and you said I never worked for public. Robert, I've worked for the public, and you've never worked for the
I
public.
never said that. I didn't say that. You misquoted me.
I
I said,
I was a government employee for 3 years of my life. Do you
okay.
realize that? I was cleaning kitchens, fixing Hummer mechanics. I was
You mean you were in the military?
I was a government property for 8 years. Yes, I was in the military. That's public, right? That's not private. That's public.
Well, I never said you weren't.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
giving
know where
you a
you
hard
got that
time.
from.
You know, when you and I
Yeah.
talk, I'm going to give you a hard time because you give me a hard time.
I'm always expecting it. Yeah. Well, I've been my whole life in the private sector, so I have that on you.
Yeah. Yes,
I'm
you
more
have
of an
been.
entrepreneur than you.
Well, I'm not as diehard of a conservative Republican capitalist as you are. I'm not at your level yet. I'm not.
Okay. All right. I see.
So look,
Yeah.
somebody asked a good question here that I think it has a lot to do with the new book you're working on, and I like the way you put it out there. Is how does one? I mean, if you read the book, I think it's either thinking. I think it is Think and Grow Rich when he talks about the fact that one of the biggest fears people have is what? Death. And you hear about public speaking, heights, all this other stuff, and you hear about death. How does one face and address the fear of dying? Like, how do you even do it? Because as we age, I feel like life is through stages where you age and you experience some friends dying, and you get into your 40s, you worry about your parents dying, and you go into 50s, 60s, you worry about siblings, friends, and then you worry about yourself. How does one, address the fear of death?
Well, the first thing is you have to confront reality. That's what all my books are about. And the reality is you could very easily die tomorrow. So you're in your 20s and you're seeing this vast vista of time in front of you, but it's not true. You could catch a major illness, you could have an accident. Of course, your chances are less than me, who's now 61, I'm sorry to say.
Wow.
But I know, sorry. But you could the moment you were born, your death was set. The sentence of death was upon you. And it could be, you could live to 80, you could live to 90, I hope so. But you could very well die in your 40s and 50s. I have had friends who died in their 40s. It's rather shocking, but it can happen.
Yeah.
So you're living in an illusion. You're walking around always thinking it's other people. It's never me. It's always other people who are mortal. It's other people who are going to die. But no, you are going to die. It's happening right now. Cells inside of you are in the process of dying, right? So confront that. I always say death is there. It's facing you. It's there, and it's like hunting you. And you're turning your back on it because you're afraid of it. I'm telling you to look at it square in the eye and deal with it. And it's not gloomy. It doesn't mean you're going to go around feeling morbid thoughts.
Yeah.
It's actually incredibly liberating. And what it means is that, first of all, you realize that your life is short. Unless you're Elon Musk or Peter Thiel and you're trying to do all these things where you're taking medicine to make you live to 200, your life is relatively short, right? So knowing that it's short gives you energy, gives you a sense of urgency, gives you a sense of desperation. I've got to get things done. I've got to be with my children. I've got to help them become better. I have to get things done. I can't just sit there and waste time. It gives you a sense of urgency. It also makes you appreciate every moment around, everything going on around you. I came like this close to dying myself. If Anna hadn't been in the car with me and hadn't called 911 right away, I wouldn't be talking to you right now, or I would have had severe brain damage. But now when I look around and I see the world around me, it doesn't look the same. It looks, wow, it's amazing the fact that I'm just alive. So it makes you grateful for what you have. And most people walk around with a sense of they're not grateful. They don't understand what they have just to actually be alive. So confronting your mortality will actually have all of these psychological benefits. It'll give you energy. It'll make you appreciate what you have right now. But the question is, how do you do it? And you have to think about it almost like as often as you can. I meditate every morning, and often I go through a process where I very much deeply think about what's going to happen to me, how one day I'm going to be facing my death. And I visualize it, and I try and put myself physically there. And so it becomes something real, it becomes something physical and emotional inside of me. And if you've studied like samurai warriors, who faced death every time they picked up their sword for a fight, they knew that being able to deal, they would meditate every single day on the fact that this could be their last day on earth. And it got rid of all of their fears, and it helped them face this incredibly stressful world that they lived in. So not confronting your mortality, you don't think of it this way. You think of it as just this kind of overall something that'll happen to you years from now, and you're kind of avoiding it. And maybe you play a little game where you kind of think about it, but you're not really thinking about it. You don't realize how that infects you generally, how it makes you afraid of taking risks in life, how it makes you afraid of making a career change, how it makes you afraid of relationships with people, how it makes you afraid of your boss. It's the one thing, it's the tree, all the roots of your fears come from that one source, your fear of your own mortality.
That was very, very deep, Robert, right there. By the way, Kai, Mario, Kyle, if you're watching this, grab me a paper and pen and my iPad if you don't mind. I want to take notes while he's speaking. If you, Kai, Kyle, or Mario, one of you guys grab me an iPad and a paper and pen. So, Robert, let me ask you this. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in a creator?
I believe that there's something larger than ourselves. And I think it's extremely important to think about that and connect to it in some way. I was personally raised Jewish, and I didn't really like organized religion. I found it kind of empty. It didn't really appeal to me. It was sort of like there was nothing emotionally connecting me to this to God or anything like that. And that's probably my own fault or my own experience. But personally, I feel like spiritual values are extremely important to me, and feeling like there is some force much, much larger than we are out there, and that we are actually incredibly small, is something I'm going very deeply into my next book. Because I think with the end of religion, and I can say that religion is fading mostly in the world, in most parts of the world, except for, like the Middle East, that something is missing, that we miss something from it, that it had an incredibly important value for us as human beings. And I think it causes a lot of problems for us when we don't believe in something larger than ourselves.
To me, you're like a modern day Plato Socrates. I've said this to you many, many times when you and I sit down and talk and we go through it. But I say this, I ask this question from you because I'm always curious about thank you. I'm always curious of people like you who are very, very well read, and you have your own strong opinions. And that's not coming from a person that just kind of watched a couple things on news, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Here's what I believe. And when you say stuff, you're saying based on a lot of different books you've read. What do you think happens at this point after reading all this stuff? What are your thoughts? What happens when we die?
What happens when we die? I don't really know. I don't have an answer.
Me too.
I think it's kind of arrogant for me to say. I mean, I've been reading a lot of books for my new book about near-death experiences, and it's very interesting how people have these experiences that seem to indicate that there is life after death, right? And I know, for instance, that I have dreams constantly about my father who passed away 20 years ago, almost as if he's alive there, he's talking to me. but I can't go and say that I have any sense of certainty that there is life after death. As far as I know, we die, we disintegrate, and our cells return into the earth, and they go somewhere else into some other life form, you know, almost like a karma type thing. I don't really know, Patrick, and I don't know if I'll ever know until I'm actually dead. So I don't
Yeah.
have an answer.
Yeah, to me, the reason why I ask that is because to me, sometimes certain answers with certainty about things that we don't know anything about, to me, is extremely arrogant. I understand, I believe, I have faith in, maybe this is what happens, or possibly this is what takes place. But sometimes you hear people give answers of things like that with a level of certainty that comes across as being arrogant. I just thought maybe what direction you would have gone with that. So, you know, going back to the conversation about death, do you think sometimes, sometimes people who, you know, are living their lives and they're just kind of going about their day-to-day stuff, and they don't spend enough time thinking about, hey, the fact that you don't have a lot of time left on earth, they don't end up maxing it out, meaning they don't end up giving everything they got to see what kind of a mark they're going to leave in the world? Because the reality is, Robert, let's just say you're talking about dying. If God forbid the day comes when you're dying, you're not really dying in my world, because this stuff is going to live on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this stuff's going to live on, and people are going to be talking, writing, reading, debating your content. They're going to say, this guy sucks. He has no idea what he's, I disagree.
That's right.
I love what he's talking. You know, that's what's going to happen, because there's a lot of people that disagree with your stuff, and there are a lot of people that love your stuff. Do you think a lot of people miss the point of life by not giving everything they have, you know, because they don't think about the fact that death could cause a high level of urgency? Do you think a lot of people don't think about it that way?
Yes, a lot of people aren't really connected to this idea that they have a task in life, that it's a destiny, and that when they were born, they were meant to accomplish something. But I believe everybody is missing that. So if you've ever spent a day working very hard on a project, or doing something in your garden and fixing something around your house, at night you feel very satisfied. You feel like you did something very productive, and you go to sleep with a kind of a nice feeling. I got something done. But it's the same thing with your life. You know, if you're in your 50s and 60s and you've never really realized your dreams, you never attempted to write that book, to start that business, because you were always afraid, and now you're facing death in your 60s, that's a horrible feeling. It's a sense that you wasted your gifts. And I believe, and I don't mean this in a Pollyannish way, I believe everybody has some natural talent or gift, something that makes them as an individual, has a unique perspective, and has something very important to contribute. And I don't mean you have to be Elon Musk or the President of the United States. I mean, you can be a great carpenter. You can even be a great plumber, but you're really good at it. You take it seriously, and it's a craft, and you want to be the best at it. And this is what I call appealing to our higher nature. And our lower nature wants to just waste time, just wants sort of simple, easy pleasures. But when you give into your higher nature, you have a sense of fulfillment. And knowing that your time is limited, knowing that you don't have 40, 50 years to waste on the internet, or, you know, surfing internet porn, or whatever it is your addiction is, knowing that you only have so much time left is actually going to energize you and give you a sense of, life is a precious thing. It only happens once, right? As far as I know. And to waste it, and to waste your years, and to waste what will give you the most amount of fulfillment, is to me tragic. So, you know, that's how I answer your question.
I just want to, on behalf of everybody, you just offended a couple hundred people when you said waste. We lost a couple hundred people right now. You made a very offensive comment about people that watch internet porn. They were very offended. There's a big porn community out there. You know, it's
particularly your followers.
Your followers. What does that say? My followers are the horniest followers. Maybe they have more testosterone. I'll take that as a compliment.
Well, maybe for some people that is productive time. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't generalize. You know?
To some people, it's spiritual. That's how they get their connection spiritually. But that's a whole different topic. I have no desire to get into the porn topic with you. By the way, you sounded like a capitalist for a moment there. Just so you know, you sounded like a capitalist because you said the connection of giving your best to do something, and, you know, feeling worthy and all that stuff. That exists in the capitalistic world because you can leave your mark. So it was very impressive for you to
Well,
give
what do you think? You think I'm a communist or something? What are you
I don't think
thinking?
you're a communist. I think you are a capitalist, but I think you're a compassionate capitalist. I think you're somebody that
Yeah,
I think you're a compassionate I don't think you're a crony capitalist guy. I think you're totally against any of
no,
those games. I know where you stand
no.
politically. I mean, one time you and I went to a Clippers game, one of the best playoff Clippers games, if you remember that.
That was amazing. That was so
It
great
was
because they
sick.
lost. Because the pathetic Clippers that I hate, they lost. And it was such a great game
Sick
because
game.
they were ahead by 40 points, then they slowly lost. It
Unbelievable.
was so exciting. Thank you, Patrick.
And by the
And that
way,
was my birthday.
yes, it was. And by the way, if you don't forget, they made the comeback with Harden on the bench. The coach
That's
didn't even
right.
put Harden in the game.
That's right.
That's
That's
crazy
right.
what happened that day. But no, what I'm saying is you and I have had a lot of great conversation. We even, if you remember one time, we went and spent some time with Shaq when there was the Laker thing going on with that special event. If you remember that, that was really cool.
That
James
was
Worthy,
fun.
all those guys. Let me ask you, how much are you watching? Because to me, one of the reasons why the book you wrote, that's my favorite book of all time. It's 33 Strategies Award. That's number one on my list. I know there's a
Oh,
lot of,
really?
yeah,
Cool.
that's my number one. That's my ultimate number one. I've had our company read that 5 times in 5 different occasions because it's a book
Great.
that you got to read multiple times. And I'm all about number 4. The book is an incredible book. It explains a lot of things that I resonate with. But how much do you watch with what's going on right now politically? And, because to me, it's all strategy on the right, strategy on the left, strategy with the
Yeah.
media, strategy with marketing. Who do you think is strategically playing better strategy right now to win the 2020 election? Just purely not opinion on belief system, more political strategy is what I'm curious about what you'll say about that.
Well, I'm not really totally impressed with anyone right now, to be honest with you. And I do some political consulting. Um, strategy is extremely important in winning an election, but almost even more important is timing, right? So George W. Bush became elected because it came at a certain moment in time, and he was facing Al Gore, whatever. And then he faced weak candidates, Barack Obama. People were ready for that kind of change. They were sick of and the wars and everything. And then Trump was facing Hillary, and circumstances had changed. So a lot of it is timing and circumstances, and it's a little bit of luck involved. So right now, you know, if you look at it to me objectively, the circumstances favor change. Normally, we change after 8 cycles of 8 years, but this could be one of those times where after 4 years, because of the crisis, because of Trump's overall popularity numbers, which have never risen up over a certain amount, it's against him. The winds are against him. If this hadn't happened, if the economy was still booming, I don't know. I wouldn't be saying that. But right now, it looks like the circumstances favor Biden. Okay, so it's almost okay for him to be locked in his basement and not doing anything because he's kind of a gaffe machine, right? Every time he speaks, every time he does a public appearance, something incredibly stupid comes out of his mouth. It's good to have him locked up in the basement, not able to appear. And it's fine to have Trump going out there continually stepping on his own feet and making a mess of things. But, you've got to look longer term, right? And so the problem with the strategies now are, so the weakness for Biden and the Democrats is, what is your program for getting out of this crisis? What is your economic ideas, your plan for where we're going to be in a year? Can you lay that out? Can you give us a sense of hope, exactly where you stand, exactly what you're going to do? Maybe he'll do that in the next few months, but I don't have a very clear sense of that. The Republicans is a complete mess. I don't know what it means anymore to be a Republican. Does it mean fiscal conservatism? Certainly not when the deficit is going to be large. You're printing money left, right, and center. And I think you're a monetarist, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So, so things that are traditionally, what is it that you stand for? What is your long-term plan? And some of the things, I generally think Mitch McConnell is a very savvy strategist. He's actually more of a great tactician than a strategist. But some of the things he's doing give me the idea that he's not very keyed into the incredible losses the Republicans might face in 2020 in the Senate, you know? So I don't think either of these parties are really crafting a long-term solid vision for the future, which I think is what people are really, really hungry for. If I were their consultant, that's where I would be putting my time and my money.
Yeah, if I was them, I'd hire you in a heartbeat. I'm not being funny. I would hire you in a heartbeat, and I would, bring you in and tell you until the election is over with, I don't want you to be talking about any of this stuff publicly. What is the
Well,
number?
I do consult with some political figures, not in the United States mostly. And the thing is, you don't want anyone to know that I'm actually consulting for you, because
Absolutely.
if word gets out that the author of the 48 Laws of Power is working for you, boy, the proverbial shit will hit the fan. So it's better that people don't know about that. So if you're interested in me, you've got to keep it on the QT here.
I like that. I like what you just said right there. So if I'm reading like a different kind of a language, I kind of read into it. Maybe there's like something going on there, but that's good to know.
Well, I tell you one thing, it's very weird. I did have lunch with Bernie Sanders. I know that you're going to tar me with that, but it was with it wasn't by myself. I was with about a dozen other people, but it was like a strategy session here in Los Angeles, because it was at a point where his numbers were very low and he was very concerned. And that was interesting, but he isn't somebody that I would vote for. But I was actually kind of impressed with him as a person. He was very funny.
Yeah, honestly, if you ask me, as a candidate to be able to rally troops, Biden cannot compete with Sanders. Not even close. Sanders
No.
is a rallier like no other. I mean, he's if you remember Ron Paul on the other side as a libertarian was trying to do stuff, Sanders is even got a 10 times better energy than Ron Paul. Obviously, philosophically, they're completely different. But it would have been interesting to see. I think a Bernie Sanders and a Trump on stage would have been
Oh my
pay-per-view.
God. Oh
Honestly,
my
I wanted to see
God.
that.
That would be like Mike Tyson and Muhammad
Say
Ali or
that's what I
something.
wanted to see. I wanted to see that. We're not
I
going to
know.
see it with Biden. With Biden,
The
he's
the
going to
best
say
the
some
best
stuff.
thing about Bernie is incredible digital strategy, incredible presence on the internet, and that is Biden's by far greatest weakness, and that is something that Trump is actually and the Republicans are actually very good at. So I'm very concerned about that aspect, but I agree that debate would have been awesome.
Do you kind of, are you hoping, relying on Biden picking somebody? Do you have kind of a name you're thinking and banking on, or not really?
I'm thinking he's going to probably choose Kamala Harris, because I think with what's going on in the news, particularly now in his most recent gaffe about you're not black, you
Mm,
don't vote for me,
yeah,
and the riots going on right now. I mean, who knows where we'll be in a few months, but I think the pressure is for him to choose a black female Veep. And I've always kind of liked Kamala Harris. She's not perfect, but she's tough. She's got that lawyer mentality. She's a pit bull. She's great in debate. She can be great in debates. She's uneven, and she's got some weaknesses, but I like her as a she's tough, you know. Whereas I don't think Stacey Abrams has anywhere the stature to become president, you know. So you have to think of, he's only going to be in there for one term if he wins. Who will be this president that you're selecting
that's
that
right.
comes afterwards?
That's right.
So that's a very important. My money right now is on Kamala Harris, but we'll see. I'm not Nostradamus, and I'm frequently wrong, as you know.
Do you think there's any chance that Michelle will agree to be the VP? Any?
Michelle Obama?
Yeah.
You're the second person that brought that up. The other person was Ryan Holiday. And both of you, I think it's a great idea, but I've never heard anybody in the press or anybody mention it. Is it
Do you know
out there?
why I'm bringing that up? Let me tell you why I'm
Why?
bringing that up. Okay, so let me paint a picture for you. If you and I get hired as a strategist, I'm your assistant. You're the main chief strategist. I'm the sidekick. They say, hey, Robert, we'll take you and this Middle Eastern guy named Patrick Bet-David. And you and I are talking to give these guys a presentation tomorrow to the Democratic DNC, whatever it is, and they're sitting there. Who should it be? If it's Michelle, let me tell you how many arguments it takes away for Trump. If they go with Kamala, you already know what viral videos Trump's camp's going to make when Kamala said stuff about Biden and
That doesn't matter.
but it's all marketing. Are you kidding me? You know, there's one
I
comment that
mean,
Trump,
come on. How many things did Lindsey Graham say about Trump that people that stuff doesn't
but that's a
stuff doesn't.
VP. You're talking about a VP. So watch this. If Michelle chooses to become the VP, within 2 years she's the president of the United States. She'll be the first female president in the history of the United States. Because here's what would happen. Let me paint a picture. My candidate's going to be Michelle Obama. Trump's going to be like, wait a minute, who? Michelle Obama? Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a curveball. So now if he says, are you comfortable having a president that's 78 years old, Biden, and he's not even healthy? A lot of voters are going to be like, actually, we're very comfortable with that because within a couple of years, Michelle's going to be the president. Are you kidding me? So then 2 years later, Biden comes out and Biden says, look, the doctor said I have to make a real decision about my health, and I don't think it's fair for somebody like me to lead the country with not my health not being the best. I appreciate you guys for voting for me, but I'm resigning and stepping down, and Michelle Obama is now your president. He becomes a president in history books. Michelle becomes the first woman president in the history books. It's a pretty interesting storyline right there. Now, again, I'm just kind of, I want to see a good fight, and I see that happening.
Well, it's a very interesting idea. I like coming out of nowhere, like you say, like a curveball. The only problem that I see in that is we've been living for 4 years under a president who had no government experience, right? The first time in our history, we actually hired as president someone with no government experience, totally a businessman in the private realm. People, if they are tired of Trump, they're tired of the chaos, they're tired of the mismanagement, they're tired of the inexperience itself. Michelle Obama has never run anything in her life. She's never, I know she was a lawyer, if that's correct, right? But I don't know what her work background is, and I don't know what her last bit of employment was. She has no experience in government. Do we want to do that, go through that all over again? I mean, I think she's very smart, she's very capable, but if we're talking about the moment that we're living in, I don't know. It's a very interesting choice, and I think it will certainly grab a lot of headlines and make a big splash, much like Sarah Palin did for John McCain. But I don't know if it's going to carry Biden across the goalposts or not. I mean, it's very interesting. I think it's a good idea. I'm always in for surprises and boldness. And Biden's weakness is he's not very bold. He needs to show some cojones here and choose somebody, that we didn't expect. So I like it for that aspect of it. And she's very popular and all. So it's very interesting, but it has weaknesses.
Yeah, but okay, so you're talking about a woman that she made $36 million off her book last year. You're talking about
a
woman
I can't compare with that.
Well, no, she's a first lady. I mean, it's a completely different story. I'm not even making the comparison. I'm just talking about Kamala. So she made $36 million with her book last year. She's got 8 years of experience being the first lady to a man who was a one-term senator. It's not like he had a lot of experience. Right. And it's to a candidate like Biden who, man, I don't even know if he inspires his own wife. I mean, I don't even know who he inspires. Who wakes up and says, I can't wait for him to be the president? Like, they have to really pick a strong VP, because when I noticed that the face of the Democratic candidate's going to be him, I was concerned. This is why, look, I don't.
Well, no, wait, you're not totally right there. Who was the candidate that Trump feared the most of all the Democrats? It's Biden. He fears him the most. You disappeared on me. Where are you?
Because I'm in my office and the light turns off every 30 minutes. Come on.
Oh, there you go.
I'm in here. It's just the timer we have in here. So
you have a clapper?
Okay. No, it's not a clapper. It notices when there's a strong connection between the guest on Instagram Live, the lights goes off. So it was kind of feeling the connection we were having. But go ahead. So you were saying Trump was afraid of one candidate. I'm assuming you're saying Biden.
Yes, he was. That was why they had the whole.
You think Trump is afraid of Biden?
Definitely, we know that. It's been reported over and over again. That's why he did the whole thing with Ukraine.
Are you kidding?
That's why yes, because he cuts in to the white working class that he thinks is his bedrock. Those people in Pennsylvania and Michigan. Look, Patrick, you're ignoring the fact that Biden won all of these primaries in states that traditionally went to Trump. He's very popular in Michigan. He's very popular in Pennsylvania. He has roots in Pennsylvania. And Trump was very, very, he was much more worried about Biden than he was about Bernie, for instance. They were licking their chops if they could get Bernie a socialist. Think of the material they would have for that. Okay.
Let me.
So I agree Biden doesn't have much charisma. But there are plenty of moments in American history where we have elected presidents who were very low on the charisma scale. I don't think W had a hell of a lot of charisma. I don't think Dwight Eisenhower, I mean, he had a great history, but he was very kind of rather dull personally.
Dwight
He,
Ike Eisenhower, how much was TV playing a role? I mean, it's a
well, that's true.
different ballgame. So I'm talking about
Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was a pretty dull president, and George the First Bush, he had very little charisma.
I
So
agree.
sometimes being a bit dull will play well if you're coming after someone who had lots of drama and lots of chaos.
I mean, let me ask you this question: who has more charisma, Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden?
Hillary.
Who is scarier, Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden?
Hillary.
Is it even in the same league?
Scarier in what sense?
Just on stage, presence. Like Hillary is intimidating. She's got a certain level of swagger. She's very confident.
Yeah,
You-
but people don't like that in a woman, and that played against her in 2016. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess all I'm saying, look, you have to know for me, remember the days where you go to a fight and Tyson would knock out players in 8 seconds and you spend $6,000 for a fight? What's the point of it? You know,
Right.
by the way, did you watch the NBA All-Star game fourth quarter this year? I'm assuming you did.
I don't think I did because I generally don't watch
Oh.
the All-Star game because they're kind of just like it's not real basketball.
Can you
But
make me one promise? Can you make me one
I
promise?
I'll look it up on
Can
YouTube.
you? I'm going to send you the video. I just want you to watch the fourth quarter. Let me tell you. You know how I am with sports, and when you and I talk, the opinions about sports, Robert, it's the greatest quarter I've ever seen in the history of sports when it comes down to defense. I've never seen better defense played.
Really?
Never in my, I mean, I was blown away by this All-Star game. The new format, I can't wait for 2021 All-Star game. It was that incredible. No joke. It was that
Wow.
incredible. I'll send it to you for you to watch.
Okay.
I want a dog fight. I want to
Right.
fight. And and unfortunately, it's not going to be a fight on this one. This one's going to be, it's going to be a boring matchup when they go at it. I mean, so yeah, I don't think Biden is at all intimidating to him at all whatsoever. I think he's waking up saying, I'm looking forward to going up against him. I think Sanders
No,
could
I
have
don't
rallied
agree.
more than Biden.
I don't agree with you. I agree that Bernie probably would be a stronger candidate than people think, but I definitely believe Biden and his team, I mean, Trump and his team are worried about Biden cutting into the white working class vote that is his strength because Trump has a bedrock of support, 42, 44%, whatever it is, maybe 45 at the most. You can't win an election on that. You can sneak by with an electoral college victory. If all of the dominoes fall precisely into place, you cut away one of his bases and he's doomed. One of his bases is the white working class that doesn't want a socialist as president, right? They didn't want Elizabeth Warren. They don't want Bernie Sanders. He cuts into that because he's popular. He has appeal to a lot of workers, the working class in places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, even Wisconsin. They were deadly afraid of it. They're playing the numbers game. They're not stupid. They understand that he lost the popular vote. He barely won the electoral college. And if anything falls wrong on those 3 or 4 key states, he's in trouble. And Biden is a threat for that.
You think Biden's a threat for that? You think
Yeah.
So let me ask you, right now, what's your split? Like saying 55% Biden wins, 45% Biden wins. Where's your split right now, the way it's going
Oh,
today?
it's certainly over 50%. I certainly think he can win. This is shaping up to be a year for the Democrats. And believe me, I'm not upset about that because you know where my politics lie. But if ever there's been a year shaping up for the Democrats to sweep the trifecta, because they'll keep the House, they could very well win the Senate, and that presidency seems closer than ever, unfortunately, thanks to the pandemic. It's this year. Now, you never know. Things could change in the moment. Suddenly the coronavirus disappears, the economy's booming again, Trump looks like he's smelling like a rose. I don't think so. So you never know. But if I had to put my money right now, you asked me where I put all my stock market money, I would put it on the Democrats.
You would put on the Democrats.
I would.
Are you willing to put 10 signed copies that we give away to our audience here of Mastery 33 Strategies of War against my $1,000? Okay, signed copies. You put 10 of those 2 copies each, 10, 10, and I'll give you $1,000, which means we're going to a Laker game or something. You choose. We're going to go somewhere.
Well, I don't want your money, okay?
Just say
I
a
want
game.
you.
I'm gonna take you to a game.
I
I'll
want.
take you
I
to a
want
game.
you. I want you to have to wear a Biden for President T-shirt for every day that you come into the office for 3 or 4 weeks. That's what I would
Are
like.
you willing to wear a Trump for
Or you have to have
president?
a Biden bumper sticker on your
So,
SUV or
so
whatever
then
you
this
drive.
means you're gonna have to wear a Make America Great Again hat. Are you that confident that Biden could win?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think I have to back out of that because
That's where the bet stops.
Where I live in Los Angeles, I might literally be killed. Somebody will come after me.
I don't
I
want to
don't
do
feel
that to you. I
safe.
don't want to do that to you.
Yeah,
No, no, no. We're just gonna.
that hat in my neighborhood could be deadly.
Yeah, I know where
So,
you're at. Your neighborhood would be dead. Yeah, I want you to be fine. So we want you to be around for a long
but I
time.
will definitely, if I'm wrong, you'll get those signed books for
Well, I
sure.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. So final thoughts here before we wrap up. Final thoughts before we wrap up. At a time like this, I know you were talking about earlier the fact that, people are afraid, things are going to be different. The economy is going to change. We don't know the ramifications of what's going to happen in the future. Do you also think this is a great time, where it's times like this that tend to give birth to the next Elon, to the next Vanderbilt, to the next Rockefeller, to the next great innovator, to the next great entrepreneur, to the next great success story? Do you think, based on history, you're somebody that studied history, that it tends to produce leaders during times of crisis and times of fear and uncertainty? Do you think that's also the case with where we are today?
Well, I think so. I agree with that, and history has shown that happens. And there's an expression in Chinese that crisis is the same as opportunity. I mean, the character is the same. Um, and when there's a lot of destruction, when a lot of industries fall apart and people are lost and they don't know, there arises the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that is able to create new values, new industries. We actually need new political paradigms, believe it or not. We need just not changes in our economic system. We also need a change in our political system, which is completely dysfunctional right now. So we need these kind of revolutions in all different areas. But it is not carved in stone because it depends on individuals and it depends on the American spirit. The American spirit in the 19th century, or even going back to the 30s and 40s, was always a can-do spirit. Let's get things done. Let's make things. We've always been good at making things. That's been our strength. We're realistic. We're practical people. And I'm worried that in the last 40, 50 years, we've been losing that touch. We've been losing it. And when you look at other countries around the world, if I had to place my money on the United States or on some country in Asia or even on Germany emerging from this stronger than we are, I don't know where I would put my money. Whereas 100 years ago, I would say for certain on the United States. I'm a little bit concerned about the overall mentality among younger people who've been going through a lot of these crises with the crash in '08, understandably, and now this crash. So it depends on, will we be able to recapture that spirit where we were the absolute geniuses at figuring out how to do things, how to make things, how to create new businesses, etc. Or are we going to flounder? Are we going to be people who were too rich? Because history is full of empires that fell.
Mm-hmm.
The Roman Empire, the greatest empire perhaps ever in the planet, it fell, right? The English Empire completely crumbled after World War One, right? So the history is full of examples of empires that have histories, they reach a peak, then they decline. So I don't know if you were asking me about the United States, because I believe in generally in the world there will be something like this. But I'm a little bit concerned that we might be in a period of decline. I can't say for certain, but that's the only qualification I give to your scenario, because I believe that you said 100% is true.
So you're saying that you feel the current generation that's going through this pandemic in U.S. is weaker than the generation that went through crisis 100
No,
years
I
ago?
would never
That's a
say
pretty
that.
big
I think
statement.
no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I have a lot of empathy for millennials, and I like them, respect them, and some of the people who work the hardest I know, like Ryan Holiday, they're millennials, etc. So I never want to say that. It's something that's been brewing well before the millennials. It's not them. It started in the 1960s. Perhaps it started in the 1950s. A decline that people have written about who are smarter than I am about what's going on with our education system, with our university system, with how we're training and educating people in this country, about the whole kind of entrepreneurial spirit that used to be so important to us. It's not just millennials. It's something that goes back further. It has to do with their parents and their grandparents, etc. So that if there's a decline, it's not just one generation that's to blame. It's all of us that are to blame. It's something going on in a cycle that naturally happens. When you get fat and contented and successful, you generally take your foot off the pedal. You generally become kind of complacent. And I've been in countries, I traveled to Russia. I was recently in the Ukraine for a talk. I've been in Asia, India. These are places where I see a lot more kind of energy and desperation to succeed in life.
I see what
Kind
you're
of
saying.
more, and I'm a little
Yeah,
bit concerned about that.
I see what you're saying. So the word you're using is desperation leads to people having their backs against the wall to go out there and do
Yeah,
whatever. Okay, no, that's a different story. And by the way, I think it's fair to say that this next generation it's on them to prove that they're a strong generation. It's not on anybody else. It's on them to go out there and do their part and kind of prove that, hey, it is going to produce some strong leaders. And I'm kind of curious myself because, there's also this element of as you age, you always think you had it harder than the current generation. And, these guys are not as tough as we used to be. And we used to be stronger and all this other stuff. And I think each generation, maybe you disagree with me, or tends to kind of hear that from their parents and their grandparents. And it kind of pisses them off where they say, you know what, screw you, I'm
sure,
going to go prove you wrong.
exactly, exactly. And I hope they are going to get pissed off and prove me wrong.
Hope
You
so
know,
too.
because our survival depends on the spirit and energy of young people. It's not old farts like myself who are going to remake this world. It's people who are in their 20s who are the dynamic force. They create new trends, they create new fashions, they create new businesses. They're the ones with the energy and the creative spirit to make it happen. So I hope to God that this generation Y that is coming up right now is what we call, because I wrote about this in my last book, I had a chapter on generations. I hope they represent what I call the revolutionary generation. They are going to remake the world. I'm not saying that they won't. I just have my concerns, that's all.
I think that's fair. And by the way, to the generation he's talking about, you may want to go read this book, okay? Mastery. If you've not read this, you may want to go read this book. And to the generation that's maybe a little older, maybe like 40, 50s, you may want to read The Laws of Human Nature, because that'll give you an idea of how to work with millennials, because this gives you a complete different perspective on people. So having said
What,
that,
you work with a lot of millennials, I suppose. Are you somewhat pessimistic based on that or no?
no, I think, my wiring is, because you got to realize my life. I was born and raised in Iran. I saw war happen, bombs, people dying, killing. People were afraid to go to work the next day, build businesses because they were bullied to have businesses being taken away. I lived at a refugee camp. So I've seen so much shit that to me, this is nothing compared to what we went through in Iran. And it doesn't mean
That's great.
I'm undermining what's happening at all. The 100,000 lives. Listen, one life is someone's pain that they have to go through. I'm just saying, 500,000 people in Iran with the war, in an ugly way when it was going. It's very, very painful when your business blows up. It's a difference between it goes out of business versus it blows up. So I come from a place of thinking mankind is capable of doing a lot of big things for themselves. And just like the Marines, just like the SEALs, just like the Rangers, when crisis happens, the leaders are instructed to have faith and strong sense of confidence that we can pull this off, and because that breeds confidence in their peers as they're going through it. I think this is also a time for us to be paranoid. I do believe we need to be paranoid because it's naive not to be, but I also think it's good to be optimistic and kind of go out there and prove the world that you got the juice to make a difference. And at the end of the day, someone's going to be right, someone's going to be wrong, and someone's going to be right, and take us a few years to find out who is right.
Yeah, but I'm usually the one who's right.
Well, that's the part with you, man. This is why I have you on.
This
is why I have you on here, because
that's a joke. Yeah,
well,
the one thing I would say though is, in these times that are very difficult and trying for all of us, you have to see it as a tremendous personal opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to look at your own flaws, your own weaknesses, to see how you're maybe not so that you're not so patient, to read more books, to think about yourself, to think about your future more. This is a time that you can use to toughen yourself up, which is very important. So you disappeared on me again. Okay.
Toughen yourself up. You were saying this is a great time to toughen yourself, read more, find out more about yourself. I agree.
Yeah. That's all.
I agree. And this is why you're here, to enlighten us, Robert. You know, this is why you're here, to give us a couple different perspectives on life today, because we needed to hear from you.
All right. That's always nice to hear. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, your experience is so interesting. There's a great book waiting to come out.
Yes,
from you.
I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it. Your next 5 moves.
No. Your book. You have a book about your life experience.
Oh, okay. That's not out yet.
Yeah. Your story would be very inspiring to a lot of people.
I think my story's still got some work to do. I still have a couple other things I'm trying to add to it. But, you know, our relationship got started very interesting when we were in Glendale, and the first time you and I went to Rafi's place, and I realized you love Rafi's, and the owner of Rafi's is a diehard fan of your book. And then from there led to us doing our first interview like 8-9 years ago, whatever the timeline was, to being where it's at today. But I'm very glad we formed a relationship, friendship, to where we are today. And I cannot wait, truly, I cannot wait for the next time we go to a game together with the cameras off, where we can just shoot the shit and talk shit to each other for 3, 4, 5 hours.
Yeah, me too.
That's the best kind of shit talking.
I hope it's soon.
I'm looking forward to it. Robert, once again, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad you're making progress.
Thank you so much for having me, Patrick. And thanks for everything that you've... Okay, take care, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.